Hi, my name is Pam Kroeper, and I am humbled and honored to be here today because April is Head and Neck Cancer Awareness Month. I was diagnosed with squamous cell carcinoma of the base of the tongue with bilateral cervical lymphadenopathy in October of 2019. I would like to take this opportunity to share with you some of the lessons that I learned during this most unexpected journey and season in my life. I chose the outfit that I'm wearing today to represent head and neck cancer, as the colors are burgundy and ivory and/or white. When I saw the femininity of the delicate lace in the top that I'm wearing, it reminded me what message I wanted to portray to women who are diagnosed with head and neck cancer. It is predominantly a cancer in males. Only 30% of women are diagnosed with it. And the stigma of that, combined with human papillomavirus, I wanted to show women our softer side and portray that it does affect women as well as men. There are 5 common areas where cancers of the head and neck can form. They are the oral cavity, the throat, the voice box, the paranasal sinuses and nasal cavity, and the salivary glands. So research estimates that a little more than 68,000 men and women in the United States will be diagnosed with head and neck cancer. Head and neck cancer makes up about 4% of all cancers in the United States. 30% of that diagnosis is women. The rest is predominantly men. And the age group at this time that is most common in is for men and women over the age of 50. However, those numbers are changing due to the increase in diagnosis of cancer from the human papillomavirus. I first found out that I had cancer after a referral to my ENT by my OBGYN. And after an office exam, he looked at me and told me that I had cancer at the base of the tongue. The only symptom that I had was I had noticed a lump on each side of my neck. So during a routine exam with my OBGYN, I called it to her attention. She examined my neck and referred me for a CT scan. And after the results from that, she referred me to an ENT. And then that prompted the visit with my ENT, who examined me in the office and looked at me and told me I had base tongue cancer. From that point, he did do a biopsy, which confirmed his findings, and the journey began. Treatments for head and neck cancer or surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, immunotherapy treatment, and/or a combination of treatments. I personally had radiation and chemotherapy as treatments. Initially, when the cancer was found in the base of the tongue, it was stage 2. Then when it was found in the lymph nodes, I was told it was stage 4 because of the spread. And in March, I had a follow-up checkup that a new test was run to determine whether the human papillomavirus was positive or negative. And it's a new test, and mine is positive, which put me back at stage 2. There's a huge multidisciplinary team for this. The main doctors are the ENT, my hematology oncologist, and my radiation oncologist. I see them every 6 months. In addition, because it's HPV, I see my OBGYN for yearly routine because HPV can manifest itself in other areas. I also see my dentist every 6 months for oral care. I see an orthodontist every month for the severe TMJ. I have a dietitian, a speech therapist that I see weekly, and a physical therapist and occupational therapist that I see as needed. 2 most common causes of head and neck cancer are alcohol and tobacco use, which can be smoking and or chewing tobacco, or the human papillomavirus. Those are the 2 most common. And the first one, the alcohol and tobacco use, is the most common. And I was not a tobacco or alcohol user. And through testing, my head and neck cancer was caused from the human papillomavirus, something that I didn't know much about at all. Head and neck cancer treatment through the radiation and chemotherapy is quite brutal. You sustain up to 3rd and 4th degree burns in your mouth and throat areas. Some of the residual effects that I experienced with this are mouth sores, redness and swelling of the mouth, difficulty chewing, swallowing, and difficulty speaking. In fact, I lost my voice for quite some time. I was also placed on a feeding tube to get nutrition because of the severity of the inability to swallow. I lost my thyroid, was burned from the radiation. Also, my uvula was burned, and it's just a little nub now, which is sort of important because food and drink wants to go up through the nose because there's nothing to stop it anymore. So with speech therapy, you learn to use different muscles to close off your palate to swallow and differently food and drink. I had no idea that I had that, and I was embarrassed to hear about it at first. In fact, some of my closest family and friends told me that I shouldn't say that because of the stigma related that it is a #1 sexually transmitted disease. And so that has its own, I guess, emotional challenges that one goes through with that. But I feel that it's very important to say that because they don't really know much about HPV virus. And the more research I do with it, they're not really sure all of the ways that one can contract that. But it's very important to get the message out that don't be embarrassed of sickness, that this is serious, and this virus causes cancers and more than just head and neck cancer. And it's very important that we continue to find out more about it so that an early detection can be determined. Do all of your follow-up appointments once you're diagnosed. But when you go to your OBGYN, your yearly routine appointments, if they don't do a physical check of your neck, request that they do that. And when you see your dentist regularly, They do the oral cancer screening for you every 6 months during your checkup. But if it's at the base of the tongue, it's in an area that cannot be seen. It can only be felt in the neck, but that's once it's spread. So it's difficult to catch this type of cancer in its early stages. It's very silent and painless, very low symptomatic. I hope that my journey encourages others, especially women, to not be afraid, to know that there is so much hope and so much to look forward to with new discoveries of head and neck cancer and how the human papillomavirus affects this. And know that there are many things that, or symptoms that are temporary with the residual effects, and some might be permanent, like loss of taste, the ability to open your mouth, that foods taste differently, and the way you speak and eat and swallow. But they're just little bumps in the road compared to the diagnosis of cancer, and the outlook is so much more promising than it was months ago, much less years ago. When I first found out about my diagnosis of cancer, I felt that my medical team and my family and friends were the support system that I needed. I hadn't really thought beyond that. But recently, I realized that we are sort of alone on a little island, especially as women, through our journey of head and neck cancer. And there is an alliance that I recently found out about called the Head and Neck Cancer Alliance. And they have a plethora of information on their website. And also, the gift of Unite was the best gift that I could have ever received for this journey. It provided an emotional support that I didn't know I needed. As a wife, as a mom, as a daughter, as a friend, I didn't want to worry anyone any more than they already were about me. So I tended to hold my emotions in and didn't realize that. But when I met the Sisters of Unite and engaged in several of the programs like the Storycrafting program and the SCART, it taught me to look inward, something that I hadn't really thought about. And it pulled emotional feelings that I had held inside and never were able to share with anybody, and brought all that out in a beautiful and healing way. And then there's the sisterhood. And what a blessing there is to have women who have been diagnosed with all kinds of cancers to share this journey with. There's a beautiful gift of unspoken words among us. We look at each other, we reach out and hold each other's hand, and we just know. And nothing else needs to be said. I think the best advice that I have for anybody being diagnosed with head and neck cancer or any kind of cancer is to remember that cancer is so very limited. It can't take your faith, it can't take your hope, it can't take your love, your joy, your courage. It can't take your memories, your family, your friends. It can't take your voice and all of your blessings and so much more. So hold on to the things that you can do and all the joy that that brings.